Hi. So, last time I talked about, so this is gonna be kind of like a part three, to the how I see the world, sort of thing I'm doing at the minute, and I'm gonna talk about, something I mentioned in the last video about, like a story of, something which happened a few months ago. So, and so I'm just gonna tell that story now, and it happened just before Christmas, maybe like 2 weeks before Christmas, perhaps. And basically, I I was having a really weird day, so I had like an appointment thingy, and I got back from the appointment, so I got back to my flat, and basically, like I started having lots of thoughts, like lots of thoughts, like really, really, really fast racing thoughts. So I started like talking to myself about the thoughts, but the thoughts weren't really making much sense. Like I was just saying everything in my head, but probably about 5 times quicker than I'm saying right now. And yeah, I was just jumping between different topics, and I just felt like really sort of like elated in a way. And anyway, so I went to the kitchen, and I just like I was still having loads of thoughts, and I was still like feeling really weird. But then I sort of like had emotional switches as well, where I don't really feel comfortable talking about this, but I would feel just like really depressed all of a sudden. Like I just had a breakdown, like nothing made sense. Um yeah, so like that happened. I had like the weird breakdown type thing. And then I went to my flatmate came back, and I just felt like I was just losing touch with reality. Um I can't remember what happened at this bit, but there was something to do with like some form of, I don't know, I can't explain this, but I can't remember. I just remember it being weird. I remember having lots of thoughts. Um, but anyway, that sort of like headspace carried on. And when my flatmate got back, she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Why? What's happened?" And I tried to explain to her what had happened, but I couldn't explain to her what had happened because it was weird. It was just I was in a strange headspace. Um, but then like I went to I was in my room later that night, and I hadn't slept with the light off for quite a while, and I don't know why, but on this particular night I decided it was a good idea to do that. So I was going to bed, and I turned all my lights off, and I laid down in bed for a little bit, and I was still feeling weird. I was feeling strange. Um, so I closed my eyes. I think I went on my phone for a little bit first. I usually do that before I go to bed. And then I closed my eyes, and just at first it just started off seeing colours. Just what that happens like on a regular basis anyway, just colours behind my eyelids, like purples and blues and browns and stuff, just moving around behind my eyelids. Sometimes in like a systematic way, so like they would I remember specifically seeing the colours as if they were coming from the back of my head and going forwards away from me, and then coming from behind me and going forwards away from me, like a purple type circle thing. Um, and this has happened like recently as well with like a meditation thing I did. Anyway, so I just started off with just colours, and then they seemed to like merge into things. So like I started seeing things like faces like emerging from like just in the blackness of my eyes. I started seeing like faces and like people, and I saw the spider a few times, and eventually I like opened my eyes, and the room wasn't pitch black because like there was a lamppost outside my room, so there was a little bit of light coming in through the side of my curtain. So it wasn't pitch black, but it was dark. It was like darker than usual. And when I opened my eyes, like the whole room was covered in little white lights, and I explained this in the last video as well, but it was like intense. It was like there was white lights everywhere. And the white lights turned into they weren't white any longer. They turned into colours. And remember how I talked about like the little midgies in the last video where they like sort of zip across like every now and then. Well, this was different. This was like the whole room was covered in those constantly, and they were probably all about that size. So they were like relatively big, but there was like probably millions of them covering the whole ceiling, and they were just sort of like zapping around. And I knew it was in my head. I knew it was just like some sort of weird, like being stuck between a dream and reality type state. But it was strange, and there wasn't just that. That was going on. It looked like the galaxy was like sort of above my head or something. And then to my left there was like a white wall, and there was like things going on there. So like there was like shadow things moving across the wall. Um and there was like the giant spider crawling across the wall too. And there was on the other wall, so I could see that in my periphery too. There was also giant shadow creatures moving along there as well. And it was like the whole room was just full of like things. It was full of like everything. Okay, so it was full of like intense stuff, and like I put up with it for quite a while. I remember like sort of just laying there and like just like observing what was going on. Like, whoa, this is like cool but weird, and I sort of like hoped that it would pass. But yeah, it didn't. It didn't like go away. So eventually, it started to feel like dark. It started. So I had all the hallucinations, but then a dark feeling came over me, and I was like, something's in the room. Like I felt like something, like some sort of entity was in the room, like causing this to happen, causing me to see the things that I was seeing. And like when I say I was seeing things, I mean like seeing things. It was probably like being 3 hours into like a psychedelic trip or something. It was like that intense. But anyway, the dark feeling came, and basically, I jumped up out of bed. I felt something touch my back as I was getting up out of bed. I rushed towards the light and I switched the light on, and uh, I went back to my bed and got my phone, and I texted my flat. Well, no, I think I stood there for like a minute first, like shaking. I was like, like full blown, like uncontrollable shaking, and I So I went to get my phone, and I texted my flatmate to see if she was awake. And she said she was. So I was like, I said, "Are you awake?" I just said panic attack, like that's the best thing I could call it at the time, but I don't think it was just that. Um, every like my hands were like tingling, like they were prickling and tingling, and I don't know what happened, but I think I was having like heart palpitations or something. Um, because my heart must have been racing really fast, which would explain like the pins and needles feeling. And my legs were shaking like really intensely. I couldn't stop my legs from shaking. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. So my flatmate came in, and I tried to explain to her what had happened. I was like, there was like things all over the room, and um yeah, I couldn't really explain to her. And I sort of felt like really paranoid as well. Like I didn't want to tell her. I couldn't, like, I didn't want to tell her. I felt like something wasn't right with her neither, if that makes sense. Like there was nothing wrong with her, I don't think. It was just, I was just really suspicious, um, about, like I didn't feel like I could talk to her, if you know what I mean. I didn't feel like I could open up, like she wouldn't have understood. But it didn't feel like she wouldn't have understood. I don't know why I didn't feel like I could. I felt like, I just felt like I couldn't, like, I don't think it was rational. in the same way that the whole like experience wasn't really rational. Um, but yeah, so then I was smoking at the time, so I went outside and I smoked, and like my legs and my hands were just shaking. And I couldn't get back to sleep. Obviously, I didn't want to. I was like, I was scared, like I was so scared. So I just, yeah, I stayed up all night and had a doctor's appointment the day after. So I ended up going to that, and yeah, it was just not fun. It was a weird week. Like, it felt really weird. Like usually things don't get that intense. Like that's pretty much as bad. Like as bad as it would get, or as bad as it has got. I mean, like I've had some really bad experiences, like along similar lines to that. Um, but yeah, that was intense. I had another experience as well where I was like, oh, I just so the whole thing is that there's things that live in the dark. There's things that like manifest in the dark, and I don't know how this happened. It just happened. But I mean, there's things that manifest everywhere, but in the darkness, it's different. It's like they come in different sorts of ways. It's they're just more prevalent. So like say if, so at my old flat we used to have shower blocks, and these would be very dark. So there could be some light in the corridor basically from whatever was coming through from people's rooms. But then you go to the shower block and it was very dark. So through this week, after this experience had happened, I spent a long time sitting on the floor in front of the shower block, staring into the darkness and watching what was happening. And there was there was lots of different things that I did this over a set of days. And there was numerous different things which kept on appearing. So there was the spider creature, the giant spider creature that appeared. I told the story in my last video where it would run down the corridor. Well, a similar sort of thing happened there, where it would stay in the darkness and then occasionally it would step out into the corridor, and it would be like really close to me. And one time it crawled onto me. I remember it being onto me, and I was like I knew it wasn't real. I was like, whoa, this is weird. Um, but yeah, anyway, there was this like really tall man, and I can't explain exactly what was happening. But if you see that door there, so imagine that door's open, and imagine the other side of it's darkness. The man was facing this way, so towards me. I would have been sat down there on the floor. The man was facing this way towards me. It looked as if he'd put both of his hands onto the door frame and leaned forward outwards to me, and I could visibly see his facial expressions changing, but I couldn't really see his face, if that makes sense. So his face was like dark. I could see dark. Where his eyes were was even darker, and he did have some form of facial expressions, but it was sort of like everything was in a dark grey tone, if that makes sense. And yeah, he changed into something else. He changed into another person, but I can't remember what that person looked like. And in the top left-hand corner of the room, that was the darkest spot. That was the darkest spot that I could see, and that was where I saw like the grudge type girl coming down, and that was weird as well. Um, but yeah, I don't understand why this happens in darkness, like especially just very vivid hallucinations. Maybe it's because my mind is used to having so much stimuli going into it from everything in the world that I just create these things, and that's probably what happens. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's just weird. It's like what, where do they come from? What causes them to come? Okay, and why do I see those particular things? Because it's a similar set of things consistently. So it's like those things must have a place in my consciousness. They must have like some form of meaning to them. They must they must mean something. You know, they can't mean nothing. Because why is it the same things each time? And I haven't looked into darkness for a while. Like sometimes when I come into a room, I hesitate for a few seconds before I turn the light on, looking. But then I don't give the things the chance to appear because I don't know what's going to appear, or I don't know how it's going to appear. I can have an idea of what's going to appear, but I don't know how I'm going to feel about what's going to appear. If that makes sense. So there's a difference between them two. So like sometimes the spider can appear and I can be fine about it. Other times I can feel like really scared about it. I used to get a feeling as well, I still get this feeling very intensely. Um, where so say if I'm going upstairs on a night and I turn the lights off behind me, if get a glimpse of the darkness, then it's the sort of feeling where I have to run upstairs because the things that live in the darkness are going to come and get me. They're going to come for me, and there's a rational part of me that knows they can't come for me because they exist in a different way. They don't exist in the way that they are like material entities, if that makes sense. So they can't like interact with me in that way. I mean, I feel like they can touch me, and I feel like they can make me feel certain things, and they can mess with my emotions, but they can't like actually hurt me. I don't think, possibly. I just don't know what they are. Do they have objective reality? Do they actually exist in darkness, or is it just my mind that's creating them in darkness? And I'm not sure. I feel like the less crazy response is to say that they that it's my mind that's creating them. I believe that. But then again, I kind of believe that the mind creates everything to an extent. I don't think. I mean, like this is probably like an extreme subjective standpoint, but I think everything we see in the world is not seen as it actually is. Rather, we create a mental representation of the world around us. So we see things, and then we process those things in here, and the way that they are processed is the way that they appear to us. Um, and that's what I believe about perception anyway. So it makes sense to say that everything's created in your head, but with the outside world as a form of catalyst for triggering experience. That makes sense, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I've got to go now because this is like quite long. So I'll probably see you in the next video. Yeah. Thank you for watching.